I'm Nicole Wilson, a 29-year-old lawyer. I was at my office, buried in legal briefs. Everything was calm. I had no idea that at that exact moment my life was being dismantled, piece by piece, to pay for a wedding. My sister Emily's wedding. The one they had been planning with a lavishness I couldn't fathom. The source of that wealth, not their savings. It was the lake house my grandfather willed to me. The one place they had no right to touch. After that call, I drove straight to the lake house, my sanctuary. I expected to find the stillness and peace I always cherished. Instead, I saw a moving truck parked in the driveway. The doors were open. My heart dropped. Strangers were carrying my furniture out as if it was theirs. I got out of my car, my legs trembling. A woman with a kind smile came out. She waved at me. "Are you the sister?" she asked. My sister. That's when I knew. The house wasn't just a symbol. It was gone. My safe haven was gone. But how? What happened? To understand my story, you have to understand my family. I have a sister, Emily. She was the golden child, the center of the universe. Every milestone, every accomplishment, every desire was hers. My parents' world revolved around her. You can see it in every photo, every home video. The camera was always on her. I was always in the frame, but never in focus. I was the responsible one, the independent one, the one who was expected to understand. I was an afterthought, an observer in my own family. If Emily needed something, I was expected to concede. My parents' love felt like a limited resource, and I was always at the back of the line. It was a silent, unwritten rule, and I accepted it for years. But I had one ally. My grandfather, Walter. He was the exception. He saw me. He valued my intellect, my passion, my heart. He never played favorites. He was the one who taught me to draw, who took me fishing, who listened to my dreams. He was the quiet strength that kept me from crumbling. He was my rock. The lake house wasn't just a gift. It was a symbol of his love, a physical manifestation of his belief in me. It was his way of saying, "You matter. You deserve a place of your own." It was the only place where I didn't feel like a guest in my own family. It was my true home. I was always the responsible one, the one who was supposed to understand. When my parents gave Emily a new car for her 16th birthday, I worked a part-time job to buy my own textbooks for college. They said, "Nicole is so independent. She doesn't need our help." My accomplishments were always framed as a surprise. When I got into law school, they acted shocked. "Who would have thought?" they said, as if I hadn't spent my entire life working for it. My graduation was overshadowed by a party for Emily's engagement announcement. She got the spotlight, I got a congratulations on the side. My career success was always a source of quiet resentment from them. At family dinners, they'd ask about my job, only to change the subject back to Emily's wedding plans. It was a constant reminder that no matter how much I achieved, I would always be the supporting character in their story, the one who was expected to understand and be happy for them. The lake house was the only thing that felt truly mine, a gift from the only person who saw me as I was. It was a symbol of being worthy, of being loved, and they took it. The irony is, they thought they could take everything from me, but in doing so, they gave me the one thing I never had, a reason to fight back. My story wasn't over. It had just begun. The lake house was my refuge, my sanctuary. It was where the world of endless expectations and blatant favoritism disappeared. The moment I stepped inside, the weight of being the responsible one, the one who understood, lifted. It was the only place I didn't feel like a disappointment. It was my most precious gift from Grandpa Walter. Not because of its value, but because of what it represented. It was a tangible piece of his love. The walls held memories of us fishing, laughing, and just talking for hours. It was a place where I was seen, heard, and cherished for who I truly was. It was the only place that felt like home. My true home. Not the place where I was a guest, but the place where I belonged. It wasn't just a house, it was the physical embodiment of my grandfather's belief in me. It was my hope, and they took it from me. The air in that room was thick with expectation. My parents and Emily sat with an almost smug confidence. They assumed the will would favor Emily, as everything always did. When the lawyer's voice broke the silence, my heart pounded. To my beloved granddaughter, Nicole, I bequeathed the lake house. The shock on their faces was immediate. Their smugness evaporated, replaced by a cold, visible disappointment. My father gripped the arm of his chair. My mother's smile vanished. It was as if they had been personally offended, as if my grandfather had betrayed them by daring to give something to me. But Emily's reaction was the one that cut the deepest. She didn't just look disappointed, she looked enraged. The jealousy was raw, undisguised. She glared at me as if I had stolen the house. The truth was, she didn't want the house. She just couldn't stand the fact that I had received something she hadn't. In that moment, I understood everything. My grandfather didn't just give me a home, he gave me a clear, undeniable sign of his love. He showed me I was worthy. And my family's reaction proved they never thought I was. The will reading was a promise from him and a betrayal from them. And it was just the beginning. While Emily was getting new cars for every milestone I was working, my parents always praised my independence, but what they really meant was, you'll have to earn it yourself. I worked at the local diner after school, my hands smelling of fries and cleaning supplies. I saved every penny to pay for my college textbooks. The contrast was a constant, painful reminder. Emily was handed everything. I earned every single thing. While she was out at parties, I was buried under library books. I saw their love for Emily in every new designer handbag, every expensive vacation. I saw their lack of love for me in every late night I spent studying alone. I didn't just graduate from law school, I fought my way through it. I worked hard. I never asked for anything. I built my career, my success, with my own hands. I thought that would finally earn me their respect. But it never did. My victories were always an inconvenience. My existence was always an afterthought. And then they took the one thing I didn't have to fight for. The one thing that was a pure gift of love. The one thing that was meant just for me. The lake house. They took it all. The anger I felt wasn't just about the house. It was about every part-time job, every late night, every moment of being dismissed. They stole more than a house. They stole my past. My entire life was a series of milestones that were immediately dismissed. When I graduated with honors from law school, the only thing my parents could talk about was how Emily's graduation party was going to be so much bigger and better. My triumph was just a warm-up act for her. When I passed the bar exam on my first try, they just said, "That's nice." The congratulations were hollow. The moment was about me, but they made it about them. They immediately pivoted to discussing Emily's engagement photos. The silence after their hollow words was deafening. My accomplishment was just an inconvenience. I tried to tell them about my first major case, a pro bono win that changed someone's life. But before I could finish, my dad interrupted. "Emily's getting fitted for her wedding dress today," he said. "It's a very stressful time for her." My joy, my victory was dismissed. It was a pattern. My happiness was always a threat to their narrative of Emily's perfection. For years, I told myself it didn't matter. Their approval wasn't something I needed. I had my own life, my own success. But the quiet resentment, the little cuts, they added up. They were teaching me a harsh lesson. No matter what I did, no matter how much I achieved, I would always be second. My value was negligible. They saw me as a resource to be exploited, not a person to be loved. I was a piggy bank they could smash when they needed something for their favorite. And the lake house? That was the ultimate piggy bank. The ultimate betrayal. It wasn't about the money. It was about the cold, calculated lie that proved I had no value to them at all. This wasn't a mistake. It was the final blow. It was a Tuesday night, and my office was my sanctuary. I was buried deep in a case, completely absorbed in the logic of a legal brief. I didn't want any distractions. That's when the phone rang. The screen showed a familiar name, Susan Jones, an elderly client with a fondness for long chats and local gossip. I sighed, but I answered. I had no idea this call would shatter my world. After a few minutes of polite conversation about her new garden gnomes, she lowered her voice conspiratorially. "Nicole, dear," she said, "I have to ask you something. I was looking online for a new home for my nephew, and I saw the listing. Is your family's lake house really for sale? It seems like such a lovely place." I felt a jolt of alarm. My stomach clenched. "Susan, there must be a mistake," I said, forcing a laugh. "That's my house. My parents don't own it. It's not for sale." I told myself it was a harmless rumor, some kind of misunderstanding. I wanted to believe it so badly. But Susan's voice was firm. "Oh, but they do, dear," she said. "The listing says it was put on the market by your parents, Mr. and Mrs. Wilson. It even has a picture of your father in front of it. The real estate agent told me the house was being sold to fund a very large wedding. Your sister's, perhaps." The line went silent. My own breathing was loud in my ears. The world of my legal case, the one that had felt so important just moments ago, dissolved. It was replaced by a cold dread. The puzzle pieces from the past were suddenly falling into place. The lavish wedding, the dismissive behavior, it all clicked. My parents had done the unthinkable. They had sold my inheritance. I drove to the lake house in a daze, my mind still reeling from Susan's call. I kept telling myself it was a mistake, a big misunderstanding, that there was some simple, logical explanation for a random listing online. I rounded the bend, and my hopeful facade had shattered. A large moving truck was parked in the driveway. My grandfather's house was a hive of activity. My peaceful haven was gone. I sat in my car staring. A woman, a total stranger, walked past my window with a box of old books, my books. She was carrying them out as if they were hers. A man came to my car. He was friendly, a kind smile on his face, a moving box tucked under his arm. "Are you looking for the Wilsons?" he asked. "They've already moved out." My mouth went dry. "No," I managed to say. "I'm Nicole Wilson. This is my house." The man's friendly smile faltered. He looked at me, then at the house. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice tinged with confusion, "but we bought this house. The Wilsons sold it to us last month. We have the papers right here. Your parents assured us everything was taken care of." My mind went blank. The world turned to a dull roar. The sound of the moving truck, the distant chirping of birds, the man's voice had all faded away. I was standing in front of my home, a place I had cherished my whole life, and a stranger was telling me it was no longer mine, that my parents had sold it. It wasn't a rumor. It was real. And the truth was a physical blow. After my gut-wrenching visit to the lake house, I got copies of the sale documents. I spent the next few hours in my office, lost in a haze of rage and disbelief. I had the documents splayed out on my desk, my own professional expertise a cruel mirror to my personal chaos. My colleague Olivia walked in. "Nicole, what's going on?" she asked, her voice filled with concern. She picked up a key document, a sales authorization form. I watched her, my heart in my throat. I knew something was wrong. My signature is unique. The way I curve the N and dot the I depart of my identity. This was a clumsy forgery. The lines were shaky. The N was wrong. It was a rushed, pathetic imitation of my handwriting. My blood ran cold. My parents had done this. They had not only sold my house, but they had forged my signature to do it. The betrayal was complete. It wasn't a misunderstanding, it was a crime. A deliberate, calculated act of fraud. I slammed my hand on the desk, the sound echoing in the silent office. "They forged my signature," I said, my voice shaking with pure, unadulterated rage. Olivia didn't flinch. She just nodded, her face grim. "It's a textbook case of fraud," she said, her voice calm and professional. "This isn't just a family matter anymore, Nicole. This is a criminal offense." The rage that had consumed me just moments before solidified into a cold, hard resolve. My emotional breakdown was over. I was back in my element. I wasn't just a betrayed daughter anymore. I was a lawyer, and I had a case. My parents had made a critical mistake. They had underestimated me. They had given me a legal fight, and I was going to win. I looked at the documents, at the clumsy forgery. The irony was so immense. They had thought they could quietly sell my house to fund a lavish party. They thought they could get away with it. They were wrong. So wrong. Their grand wedding was built on a foundation of lies and a forged signature. It was a beautiful lie, but it was still a lie, and I was going to expose it. The rage was a fire, but the law was a scalpel. Cold, precise, and effective. The moment Olivia confirmed the forgery, the emotional part of me shut down. I was no longer a betrayed daughter, I was a lawyer. I leaned back in my chair, picked up a pen, and looked at Olivia. "Let's talk about the legal options," I said. My voice was as calm as if we were discussing any other case. Olivia laid out the facts. "Your parents had no legal right to sell that property. Your grandfather willed it to you. That's a matter of public record. The sale is null and void. We can file a lawsuit for fraud. We can get the deed back. We can sue for damages and possibly press criminal charges for forgery. They're looking at a felony." The legal reality was so simple, so clear. The rules were on my side. But I also knew my family. They wouldn't just accept defeat. They would spin the narrative. They would use Emily's wedding as a shield. They would paint me as the cruel, heartless daughter who ruined her sister's big day over a petty inheritance. A quiet rage took over. This wasn't just about getting my house back. It was about exposing their true nature. But I had to be strategic. "We don't file the suit now," I said. Olivia looked surprised. "Why?" she asked. I leaned forward, the plan forming in my mind. "Because if we do, they'll turn it into a family drama. They'll say I'm ruining the wedding. They'll play the victim. They'll get sympathy." No, I had a better plan. I would let them have their big, lavish, expensive wedding. The wedding they paid for with my inheritance. Let them bask in the glory, the applause, the congratulations. Let them feel like they got away with it. Because the higher they fly, the harder they'll fall. The public humiliation would be a better revenge than any legal fee. They stole my home, my family, and my trust, and they did it all for a 2-day fairy tale? So I would let them have their fairy tale ending. I would let them have their perfect moment. But it wouldn't last. Because after the wedding, when all the guests had gone home, and all the cameras were off, I would bring the full force of the law down on them. My victory would be absolute. After Olivia left, the anger that had been simmering finally reached a boiling point. This wasn't a legal issue anymore, it was a personal one. I needed them to know. I picked up the phone and dialed their number, my hand shaking with a mixture of rage and sorrow. I wasn't going to yell, I was going to be a lawyer, cold, precise, and professional. My mother answered, her voice cheerful, unaware. I didn't waste time with small talk. "I know about the lakehouse," I said, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. The silence on the other end was immediate and deafening. I could hear my mother's quick, sharp intake of breath. "Nicole, what are you talking about?" she said, trying to sound confused. The gaslighting had already begun. My father took the phone. His voice was all bluster, a performance he had perfected over a lifetime. "We were going to tell you," he said. "This was for the family, Nicole. It was a good financial decision. The house was sitting there doing nothing. Emily needed money for the wedding. It was the right thing to do." I laughed, a dry, bitter sound. The right thing. Did the right thing involve forging my signature on the sales documents? Did the right thing involve selling my inheritance to a stranger without my knowledge? Or was that just for show? A nice little bonus to pay for a fairy tale wedding for your golden child? They went silent again. The forgery was a fact they couldn't argue against. My mother's voice was now a whimper. Nicole, please. Think about your sister. She's so happy. You wouldn't want to ruin this for her, would you? We're your family. We just want everyone to be happy. We made a mistake. Please understand. I felt a cold calm wash over me. The pain was gone, replaced by clarity. You're right, I said. You did make a mistake. A big one. The biggest one of your lives. My voice was dead serious. You think I would ruin Emily's wedding? No, I wouldn't. This isn't about the wedding. It's about the fact that you never saw me as a daughter. You saw me as an asset. A resource to be used to make your golden child's life easier. That's all I've ever been to you. I took a deep breath. The lakehouse wasn't just a property. It was the only tangible piece of love I ever got from this family. The only place I ever truly belonged. My grandfather gave it to me because he saw me. He knew how you treated me. And you took it. You didn't just sell a house, you sold the last piece of me that was connected to any kind of real love from a family member. My mother started to cry. My father tried to interrupt, but I didn't let him. I'm not calling to ask for it back, I said. This was the lie. The most important part of my plan. I will not be attending Emily's wedding, and I will not be speaking to either of you again. You think I'm ruining her perfect life? No, you are. This is on you, not me. Goodbye. I hung up before they could reply. I just stood there holding the phone, my heart pounding. The connection was severed. The family that had never really been mine was officially gone. I had chosen my own path. I was free. I was alone, but I wasn't scared. Because now the game had changed. I had the law, the proof, and the righteous anger of a lifetime of being second best. And they had no idea what was coming. The ballroom was a masterpiece of opulence. Crystal chandeliers dripped from the ceiling, their light reflecting off 1,000 champagne glasses. The air was thick with the scent of lilies and expensive perfume. Every detail was perfect, from the silk tablecloths to the live string quartet. My family was in their element, a perfect picture of success and happiness. A fairy tale wedding, they called it. I watched from the shadows, a ghost at their grand feast. I could feel the irony of it all. Every perfectly placed flower, every glass of bubbly, every note from the quartet, it was all paid for with a house. My house, my legacy. The love and trust of my grandfather reduced to a party favor. My family was celebrating a lie, and I was the only one who knew the truth. Emily was the star of the show, a glowing bride in a dress that must have cost more than my first car. She looked perfect, blissfully unaware. She floated through the crowd, accepting compliments, her face a mask of pure, untainted joy. A joy built on my pain. I watched her and felt nothing. No jealousy, just a cold, hard resolve. She was the final piece of the puzzle. My parents were a vision of pride. My mother was showing off Emily's new ring to a group of her friends, her voice a mix of boastfulness and false humility. My father was shaking hands with the groom's parents, a wide, performative grin on his face. He looked every bit the successful patriarch, the man who had it all, the man who had taken it all from me. A family friend, a woman named Carol, spotted me. Nicole, I didn't think you'd come, she whispered, leaning in. After everything I heard, your parents were so disappointed, so heartbroken. Her words were a subtle jab, a reflection of the narrative they had crafted. The story where I was the villain. I gave her a tight, polite smile. I couldn't miss this, I said, my voice as calm as a winter lake. This is a night to remember. For everyone. My words were a promise, a threat, a prophecy. I held in my hand the legal documents, the papers that would bring their whole perfect world crashing down. The forgery was a silent promise of my revenge, It was the key to this whole operation. I wasn't a guest. I was an executioner, and I was waiting for the perfect moment to deliver the final blow. Just as the tension reached its peak, I saw a familiar face weaving through the crowd. My colleague Olivia was here. She wasn't in a formal gown, she was in a professional pantsuit, looking as out of place as I did. Seeing her was like finding an anchor in a raging storm. I wasn't alone. She was my witness, my confidante, my most steadfast ally. She was my proof. She reached me and gave a quick, serious nod. "Are you ready?" she whispered. Her voice was the only calm thing in the room. "Ready as I'll ever be," I replied. "Do you have it?" I nodded at the legal brief she was holding in her hand. This wasn't just a friend showing up. This was a professional. My plan wasn't just an act of revenge. It was a carefully executed legal strategy. "Remember," she said, "this will be messy. It could get ugly. We have a solid case, but you know how they are. They will try to turn it around on you. They'll play the victim. They'll use every trick in the book to try and ruin your reputation." I gave a short, bitter laugh. "They already did," I said. "They ruined my reputation with the rest of the family the moment I called them out on their lie. That's why I'm doing this now. They used the family to justify their betrayal. Now the family will be the audience for their public shame." The plan was simple. I had to wait until everyone was there. All the society figures, all the family friends, all the people they wanted to impress. I would wait until my father was at his proudest, with the toast in his hand. I wanted to catch them at the exact moment of their ultimate triumph. That was the only way to make sure the fall was as dramatic as the lie was extravagant. Olivia nodded, a silent acknowledgement. "We filed the restraining order for the money," she said. "The minute you hand them the documents, their assets will be frozen. The money from the sale, the checks, everything they've paid for this wedding, they won't have access to a single penny. It's a legal checkmate. You won't just be taking their house back, you'll be taking their reputation and their money." I gave her a small, grateful smile. "Thank you, Olivia," I said, "for believing me, for being here." She just squeezed my arm. "You're not a victim, Nicole," she said. "You're a warrior. Now go. It's time." She handed me the legal folder. I took it, the weight of it feeling like a shield and a sword at the same time. This was it, the final act. The party was in full swing, but for me, time had slowed to a crawl. My heart was pounding, a silent, rhythmic drumbeat against my ribs. It was the thrill of the hunt. The moment of truth was coming, but I had to be patient. I had to wait for the exact right moment. The moment of their ultimate triumph. I wouldn't ruin a party, I would expose a lie. And the lie was beautiful. It was perfect. I had to let them enjoy it just a little longer. My father stood up, clinking his champagne glass with a spoon. A hush fell over the crowd. This was it, the main event. The patriarch of the family, giving his toast to his perfect daughter. He smiled, his eyes shining with pride. His perfect life, a public display of wealth and success. And every last bit of it was built on my back. The anger burned cold and bright within me. The wait was almost over. He started his speech, and the words were a punch to the gut. He talked about family values and hard work, and how proud he was of everything Emily had accomplished. The hypocrisy was so vast, so stunning, it almost took my breath away. He was celebrating my sister's success with money stolen from my inheritance. He was giving a speech about honesty while living a lie. I looked at Emily, her face turned up to my father, a look of pure adoration in her eyes. She was a blank slate. Unaware, her husband was equally oblivious, a big, simple grin on his face. They were so happy, so perfect. And their happiness was a lie. A beautiful, expensive lie. I felt a pang of something close to pity, but it was quickly replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I wasn't just here to expose my parents, I was here to show everyone the price of this perfect family. My father finished his speech, and the applause was deafening. He raised his glass. This was it, the final moment of triumph. I took a deep breath and stepped out from the shadows. Every eye in the room turned to me. I walked with purpose, my lawyer's suit a stark contrast to the gowns and tuxedos. I held the legal documents tightly in my hand. My heart was pounding, but my mind was clear. I could see the confusion on my parents' faces. My mother looked at me, then at Emily, then back at me. Her smile faltered. My father's hand, still holding the champagne glass, began to shake. They thought I was gone. They thought I had given up. They had no idea I was just waiting for the right time, the right audience, the right moment to show them who they had underestimated. The music was still playing. The conversation was still murmuring. But for me, it was all a silent film. The only thing that mattered was the three of us, the betrayers and the betrayed. I was no longer the invisible daughter. I was the reckoning. And I was about to give them the one thing they couldn't buy with a forged signature, the truth. It was time for the fairy tale to end. The music stopped. The murmuring died down. The entire room was silent, every eye on me. My parents' smiles had vanished, replaced by a dawning horror. Emily looked at me, confused, a fragile, perfect bride. This was their perfect moment. And I was their reckoning. "Nicole, what are you doing?" My father hissed, his voice a low, furious threat. "This is not the time." My mother grabbed my arm, her nails digging into my skin. "Go home, Nicole," she pleaded. "Don't do this." I pulled my arm away, my voice calm but sharp enough to cut glass. "I just wanted to make a toast," I said to the crowd. "A toast to honesty, and to my sister Emily, whose wedding, by my parents' count, cost exactly one lakehouse, willed to me by our grandfather." A collective gasp went through the room. My father's face went white. "She's just being dramatic," my father said, his voice strained. "Go back to your table, Nicole." Now, I held up the legal folder. "This is the sales deed for my lake house," I announced, my voice clear and loud. "And this," I said, pulling out a single sheet of paper, "is the signature my parents forged to make the sale. They didn't just lie, they committed fraud. A felony." The whispers turned to gasps. Emily stepped forward, her face a mixture of disbelief and horror. "Mom? Dad? Is this true?" Her voice was a terrified whisper. My father's face went from white to a deep, dangerous red. "No," he roared. "It was for your happiness. She's ruining everything." I looked at my father, a cold smile on my face. "I didn't ruin anything," I said, my voice cutting through his fury. "You did. The moment you forged my name on this document, you signed away more than a house. You signed away your integrity, your reputation, your freedom." My mother was openly weeping now, a pathetic sight. "We thought we got away with it," she sobbed. "We needed the money." I walked up to my father, who was still frozen in shock. I put the legal folder in his shaking hand. "This is a lawsuit," I said softly, but loud enough for everyone to hear. "We've already filed a restraining order. The money from the sale, all your assets, it's all frozen. The lawyers will be in touch, and the police will be here shortly to discuss the felony fraud. Enjoy the rest of the wedding." The party that had once been so loud and celebratory was now dead silent. I turned and walked away, the sound of my own footsteps echoing in the silence. I wasn't just walking away from a party, I was walking away from a lifetime of being a victim. I was finally free. I had my justice. The party was over. The grand ballroom, once so full of laughter, was now eerily silent. A few discarded napkins and wilted flowers were all that remained of the perfect wedding. In the middle of it all, the lie had ended. I stood by the door, watching as a lawyer and 2 police officers calmly spoke to my parents. They were no longer the proud hosts. They were just 2 people, cornered and broken. The police officer was all business, his voice formal and procedural. "Ma'am, sir, we need to discuss the forgery of these documents," he said, holding up the papers I had given my father. "We have a sworn affidavit from your daughter, and we have a forensic analysis report. This is a felony charge." My mother was openly weeping, her makeup running. My father just stared at the officer, a defeated, empty look in his eyes. I felt no satisfaction. The rage was gone, replaced by a quiet emptiness. This wasn't a triumph. It was a tragedy. I watched the people who were supposed to love me face the consequences of their actions. They had been so consumed by greed and their perfect image that they had destroyed their own family. Their victory was a mirage, and now the mirage had vanished. They were left with nothing. I walked up to my mother. She looked at me, her eyes red and puffy. "I'm so sorry, Nicole," she sobbed. "We never meant for this to happen." The words were a bitter pill. "You didn't mean to get caught," I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. "That's the only thing you regret." She flinched, but she didn't deny it. The legal reality had finally caught up to them. The party was over, the fairy tale was dead. All that was left was the truth, and the truth was ugly. I had gotten my justice, but it came at a price. The family I had so desperately wanted to belong to was gone. The family was a lie, a beautiful, devastating lie. But it was a lie I was now free from. The police officers led my parents away. My mother was still sobbing, and my father was a ghost of a man. As they disappeared, a small, fragile figure appeared from the shadows. Emily. She was no longer a perfect bride. Her makeup was smudged, and her veil was torn. She looked at me, her eyes wide with a combination of fear, disbelief, and genuine sorrow. This was the final confrontation, the one that mattered most. She stopped a few feet from me, her voice a terrified whisper. "Nicole? What did you do? Why did you do this?" Her questions were naive, almost childlike. She still couldn't grasp the truth. She still saw me as the villain, the one who had ruined her perfect day. "You have to fix this," she pleaded. "Please, tell them it was a mistake. Tell them you were angry." My voice was gentle but firm. "I can't fix something that was never whole, Emily." And this wasn't about anger. It was about truth. It's about a lie that our parents have been telling their whole lives. A lie they built on my back. This wasn't a moment of anger. This was a lifetime of being told I was a footnote in the story of our family. This was my moment to be a chapter. The words hit her. She flinched, and her eyes filled with tears. "I don't understand," she whispered. "I don't. What did I ever do to you?" I felt a pang of sadness. The truth wasn't her fault. "You didn't do anything," I said. "That's the point. You were the golden child. The one who got the love and the attention. The one whose happiness was worth more than my inheritance. You didn't do anything because you never had to. They just gave it all to you." Emily's knees buckled, and she sank to the floor, sobbing. "My wedding, my beautiful wedding," she cried. "It was all a lie. All of it." I knelt down in front of her. "It was a lie they told you, Emily. Not me. They made you believe your happiness was worth anything. They taught you to be selfish. This isn't on you. This is on them." She looked at me through her tears. "I'm so sorry, Nicole," she said. The words were simple, but they were the most genuine words I had ever heard from her. "I'm so sorry," I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. The apology wasn't for me, it was for her. It was her finally coming to terms with the truth. I stood up and looked at her. "You have a choice now, Emily. You can stay here and keep pretending. Or you can leave and build a new life for yourself. A real one. One based on truth and not on lies." I didn't wait for a reply. I just turned and walked away. The family was gone. My revenge was complete. But this wasn't about revenge. It was about finding my truth. It was about finding myself. And finally I had. The dust had settled. The public spectacle, the legal drama, it was all fading into memory. Life was no longer a frantic fight for survival. It was a quiet process of rebuilding. I was in my apartment, but it wasn't the same. I had cleared out the old furniture, the things my parents had bought for me, and was painting the walls a color of my own choosing. This wasn't just a home, it was a declaration of independence. The phone rang, and it was Olivia, my lawyer. "They've been trying to call you," she said, her voice a mix of professional and empathetic. "Your parents. They've left dozens of messages. They want to talk. They say they're sorry. They want to know if you'll drop the charges." I gave a short, humorless laugh. "They're not sorry, Olivia," I said. "They're just sorry they got caught. They're sorry their perfect life is over. They're sorry they have to face consequences for the first time in their lives. The house will be back in my name within the month, correct?" "Yes, the sale is being reversed," she confirmed. "The forged documents made the transaction null and void. The deed is being transferred back to you. The charges for felony fraud stand. There will be no prison time, but they will face probation and heavy fines." I nodded. It was enough. The legal system had done its job. My job was to do mine. To rebuild. I looked around the apartment at the new furniture, the new color on the walls. This wasn't my family's apartment, it was mine. This wasn't their victory, it was mine. And the house would be a part of my new life. It wouldn't be a source of pain anymore. It would be a symbol of my freedom. I hung up the phone. The final boundary was set. There was no going back, only forward. A lot of you have asked me why I did it, why I didn't just walk away and move on. Some of you have said it was a harsh thing to do to my own family. But this wasn't about being harsh. It was about being seen. It was about standing up for myself after a lifetime of being invisible. The revenge story isn't just a story about what I did to them. It's a story about what I did for me. Family is supposed to be your sanctuary, your safe place. But sometimes, family is the very place you need to escape from. The betrayal wasn't just the forgery. It was a lifetime of being told I was less than my sister. A lifetime of being told my value was tied to what I could do for them. The lie wasn't just about a house. It was about my entire identity. My grandfather knew it. That's why he left me the lake house. It wasn't just an inheritance, it was a message. A symbol of his belief in me. A symbol of a love that was truly mine. When they sold it, they didn't just steal a property. They stole a symbol of that love. And they did it to build a beautiful life for my sister. That's why I couldn't just walk away. The night of the wedding, I wasn't there for revenge. I was there for justice. I was there to reclaim my name. I was there to tell the world that my worth was not determined by my parents' love or my sister's happiness. It was determined by me. It was a public act because the betrayal was a public lie, and the truth needed to be just as loud. My parents are facing the consequences now. They lost everything they cared about, their reputation, their money, their perfect image. They tried to build a fairy tale on a foundation of lies, and I was the one who pulled the rug out from under them. I don't feel hate for them, just a quiet pity. They never understood that money can't buy integrity. It can't buy honesty, and it can't buy a family that's built on trust. And for my sister, Emily, she has a choice now. She can stay in denial, clinging to a false reality, or she can face the truth. And maybe one day we can start over, but it has to be on her terms and on mine, not on the terms our parents set for us. So, if you're in a family where you're being manipulated, where your voice isn't heard, where your worth is being questioned, remember this. You are not a footnote. You are a chapter. You are the author of your own story. And sometimes to write a new beginning, you have to tear down the old walls, even if those walls are built by the people who are supposed to love you. The sun was setting, casting a golden light across the water. I stood at the edge of the lake, listening to the gentle lapping of the waves against the shore. The air was cool, and the only sound was the rustling of the leaves in the trees. It had been months since the wedding, since the grand public spectacle. All the noise, the drama, the anger, it had all faded. What was left was this: the house, the lake, and a quiet, profound peace. I walked up to the house, the old floorboards creaking softly under my feet. It was empty, but not sad. It was a blank canvas. A new beginning. I looked out the window at the same view I had loved since I was a child. The trees, the water, the small dock. This place was a ghost of a memory, a source of so much pain. But now it was a source of healing. It was a testament to my grandfather's love, a love they tried to steal, but couldn't. I sat on the porch, a quiet smile on my face. I had gotten my revenge. I had exposed their lies, ruined their reputation, and taken back what was mine. But that wasn't the point. The point was never the revenge. The revenge was a means to an end. It was the tool I needed to reclaim my peace, to reclaim myself. The anger had been a fire, a force I needed to get here. But now the fire was out, and all that was left was the warmth. The family I had fought so hard for, the one I had desperately wanted to belong to, was a fantasy, a beautiful, devastating lie. But I didn't need a lie anymore. I had the truth, and the truth was a little bit sad, but it was also freeing. I was my own family now. I was in control of my own life. I was building a future on a foundation of honesty and strength, not on a foundation of lies and manipulation. The house was a symbol of that, the final piece of the puzzle. I thought about my parents. I didn't hate them anymore. I didn't feel rage or resentment. I just felt nothing. A quiet emptiness. They had lost everything they valued, and they had done it all to themselves. They were no longer a part of my story. They were a chapter that was closed, the book put back on the shelf. I had new chapters to write, new stories to tell. I walked down to the dock, the wood warm under my bare feet. I sat down and dangled my feet in the cool water. The silence was a friend. It wasn't the silence of being ignored, it was the silence of peace. The silence of being truly alone but not lonely. It was a silence that spoke volumes. It said, "You are safe, you are home, you are whole." And for the first time in my life, I truly believed it. The revenge was over. The justice was served. But the journey was just beginning. This was the first day of my new life. A life where I was the main character. A life where I got to decide my own value. A life where I got to build a home not just for myself, but for the future. The house was not a symbol of the past. It was a promise of the future. My future. And it was beautiful. It was free. It was mine. The weeks had passed, turning into months. The quiet of the lake house was a welcome change from the chaos of the city. I was starting to feel whole again. One afternoon, a letter arrived. It wasn't a legal document or a bill. It was a simple, handwritten envelope with a familiar, careful script. It was from Emily. My stomach tightened. I had built a fortress around my heart, and I was terrified it was another attempt at manipulation. But my curiosity won out. I unfolded the paper, my hands shaking slightly. The first words were a punch to the gut. "Dear Nicole," it began, "I'm writing this because I don't know what else to do. I'm so sorry. I'm so ashamed." She wrote about the days after the wedding, about the shock and the shame, how her father and mother were now facing legal consequences. But it wasn't just about the money. She wrote, "I feel like I've been living in a dream. My whole life was a lie. I was the perfect daughter because I was the one who didn't question anything. I was the one who didn't see the truth." She apologized for her part in it all. "I didn't know," she wrote. "But that's not an excuse. I was selfish. I just accepted everything because it made my life easy. I never once thought about what it was costing you. I thought you were just angry about the house. I had no idea you were angry about a lifetime of being second best. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for taking what wasn't mine." The letter continued. She wrote about her parents. They've lost everything. Their friends, their money, their perfect reputation. They still don't understand why you did it. They think you're just a spiteful person. But I know better now. I know you did it because you had to. You didn't do it to hurt them. You did it to save yourself. And in a strange way, you saved me too. You set me free from the lie they had me living." The final lines of the letter were simple, but they meant everything. "I don't know if we can ever be sisters again," she wrote. "Not in the way we were, but I hope one day we can be friends, honest friends, from a distance. And I hope you find the peace you deserve. With all my love, Emily." A single tear rolled down my cheek. It wasn't a tear of sadness. It was a tear of relief. The final act of manipulation was over. The cycle was broken. She just accepted the truth. The letter wasn't a cry for help. It was a first step towards her own healing. And it was all I could ever ask for. The honest distance was the first real connection we'd ever had. The quiet was a comfort, but I wasn't meant to be completely alone. That evening, I heard a car pull up. I opened the door, and there they were. My friends. They weren't family by blood, but they were family by choice. They hugged me, their laughter filling the quiet house. The air immediately changed. It was no longer a place of quiet reflection. It was a place of life. It was a home. We cooked dinner together, the sounds of chopping vegetables and sizzling food mixing with our conversations. This was so different from the lavish parties my parents threw. This was real. No pretense. No expectations. Just a group of people enjoying each other's company. We were building a home, not just with bricks and mortar, but with laughter and trust. This was the family I had always wanted. My friend, Sarah, looked at me, a genuine smile on her face. "You look so different, Nicole," she said. "You look free." Her words were simple, but they meant the world. My other friends nodded in agreement. They had seen me at my worst. They had been there for me when no one else was. They had been my rock. They had been my family. Later we sat on the porch, watching the stars come out. My friend Mark looked at me, a serious expression on his face. "Do you regret it?" he asked. I didn't have to think about my answer. "No," I said. "I don't regret it. I'm not who I was anymore. And I'm not who they wanted me to be. I'm just me. And I'm finally happy with that." I had my justice. I had my house. But what I had truly gained was myself. I had redefined what family meant to me. It wasn't about blood. It was about honesty, loyalty, and love. It was about a group of people who chose to be there for you, no matter what. It was a family built on a foundation of truth, not on a foundation of lies. It was a family I had built myself. The sun finally dipped below the horizon, and the stars began to twinkle in the night sky. The night was peaceful, beautiful, and full of hope. The revenge story was over. The pain was gone. All that was left was the truth, my chosen family, and the beginning of a new, beautiful life. And I wouldn't trade that for all the money in the world. This was my happily ever after. It had been years since the wedding, years since I stood in that ballroom, armed with legal documents and a lifetime of anger. The memory was no longer a source of pain, it was a distant echo. My life was different now. The peaceful quiet of the lake house was still my home, but my purpose had found a new professional outlet. I was in my office now. A sleek, modern space with a view of the city. This was my sanctuary. This was my victory. I was working on a pro bono case. A young woman, just out of college, whose parents had stolen her college fund to pay off their gambling debts. The details were different, but the story was the same. Betrayal, manipulation, lies. My assistant, a bright-eyed young lawyer named Maria, handed me the file. "It's just like your case, Nicole," she said, a hint of awe in her voice. "The parents are denying everything." I looked at the file, a small, knowing smile on my face. My revenge hadn't been an end, it had been a beginning. It had taught me what to look for, how to fight. It had turned my pain into a superpower. I had become the person I needed when I was at my lowest. I had become a voice for the voiceless. I had found my purpose, and it was to help others reclaim their own lives from the families who had stolen them. I spoke to the young woman on the phone, my voice calm and reassuring. "I know this feels impossible right now," I said. "I know you feel lost. But you have to remember this: you are not defined by what they did to you. You are defined by what you do next. You are defined by your strength. And we're going to fight for you. We're going to get you the justice you deserve." I hung up the phone, a small, genuine smile on my face. My office was my new reality. My work was my new purpose. The lake house was my sanctuary. And the family, they were just a ghost from the past. A lesson learned. The perfect, beautiful, damaging lie. I had moved on. I had found happiness. I had found peace. And I had done it all on my own terms. The revenge story wasn't about getting even. It was about getting free. And I was finally free. The legal battle was over. My career was on the right track. My chosen family was a source of constant support. But there was one last thing I had to do to close the loop on my old life. A few years ago, my grandfather left me an old wooden boat. My parents told me it was too much work, a money pit. They sold it to a local fisherman for a few $100. But when I got the lake house back, I found it a broken, neglected mess. I knew I had to restore it. For me. For him. I spent months on it, sanding away the old, peeling paint, filling in the cracks, repairing the broken parts. It was a slow, deliberate process. Each day, as I worked on the boat, I felt a part of me healing. The anger, the pain, the resentment, I was sanding it all away. I was restoring a piece of my past, a piece of my grandfather's legacy. It was a physical act of defiance, a quiet, personal triumph. I gave the boat a new name, the Phoenix. It was a symbol of my journey. I had risen from the ashes of a family's betrayal. I was stronger, more beautiful, and more resilient than ever before. My friends came to visit, and they watched in awe as the boat transformed. They cheered me on, their support a constant reminder of the love that was real. The day finally came. I stood at the edge of the dock, looking at the finished boat. It was magnificent. The wood was a beautiful, dark mahogany. The sail was a crisp white. I had done it all myself. No help. No one to take the credit. Just me. The girl who was told she wasn't good enough. The girl who was told she was a mistake. I was so proud of myself. I pushed the boat into the water, and it floated perfectly. I got in, and with a single push of the engine, I was moving. I was on the water, the wind in my hair, the sun on my face. I was alone, but I wasn't lonely. I was at peace. The lake, which had once been a symbol of betrayal, was now a symbol of my freedom. I was the captain of my own life. The revenge story was over. But my story, it was just beginning. This wasn't just about getting even. It was about getting free. It was about a girl who lost everything, and in losing it all, she found herself. And she found a life that was so much more beautiful than the one she had lost. She found a life that was all her own. And she was finally home. The story began in a ballroom, a place of grand lies and false promises. It was there that I was meant to be a footnote in my sister's fairy tale. But the fairy tale was a facade, and the lies were its foundation. The anger I felt in that moment was not just my own. It was the culmination of a lifetime of being overlooked, of being told I wasn't enough. The revenge was public, but the journey was deeply personal. It was a journey of reclaiming my voice, of rebuilding my identity, and of finding the strength to stand on my own. My parents thought they had taken everything from me. They thought they had won. But they never understood that the things they valued, money, reputation, status, were meaningless to me. The true victory was not in their downfall. The true victory was in finding my own definition of family. It was in the laughter shared with friends who chose to stand by me. It was in the quiet comfort of a home built on trust, not on lies. It was in the love that didn't come with conditions or expectations. I had to tear down the old walls to build a new foundation, a stronger one. The lake house, which was once a symbol of betrayal, became a symbol of my freedom. The boat, which was once a broken relic of a lost dream, became a symbol of my resilience. I had to lose everything to realize what truly mattered. And what truly mattered was not the past. It was the future. A future I was building with my own two hands. A future I was in control of. So, if you're listening to this and you're in your own revenge story, remember this. It's not about getting even. It's about getting free. It's about finding your voice, standing up for your worth, and walking away from anyone who tells you that you are anything less than a hero. You are the protagonist of your own story, and you have the power to write your own ending. Don't let anyone else hold the pen. The family revenge story wasn't about revenge. It was a love story. A love story between me and myself. A story about a girl who, after losing everything, finally learned to love and trust herself. And that, in the end, was the greatest victory of all. The story is over. But my life is just beginning. And it's a beautiful one. It's a happy one. It's a free one. The story is over, but the lessons are just beginning. I know many of you are watching this and seeing parts of your own life reflected in mine. You felt the pain of betrayal, the sting of being overlooked, and the heavy weight of family expectations. You've been told to just let it go and move on. But what if moving on means standing up for yourself? What if it means setting boundaries so strong that no one can ever cross them again? What if it means realizing that your worth is not tied to your parents' approval or your siblings' success? It's a hard truth, but it's a freeing one. The first step is the hardest, but it's the most important. Your family story doesn't have to define your life. You have the power to write a new chapter. Start with something small, a simple, honest conversation, a boundary you've been afraid to set, a step toward independence. Find your chosen family. Find your purpose. And most importantly, find your peace. It might not be easy, but it will be worth it. My revenge story was never about them. It was about me. It was about learning to love myself enough to protect myself. So, go out there and be the hero of your own story. Don't let anyone else hold the pen. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.